If you believe history began in Athens or Rome, then you've already missed the first chapter of human civilization. Long before Greek philosophy, before the Crusades, before the Industrial Revolution, there were mighty civilizations buried beneath the sands of the Middle East, where humanity first learned to live together and to kill in the name of belief. This was the birthplace of writing, where the very first laws were carved in stone. Where God, Allah, and 100 forgotten deities were once worshipped, fought for, and slowly faded into myth. A land where empires rose from dust and collapsed into shadow, leaving only whispers carried by the desert wind. From Sumer to the Ottomans, from the Crusades to ISIS, the story of the Middle East isn't just history. It's a mirror reflecting the deepest parts of human nature. Share your thoughts in the comments, and if you want to understand why the past still rules the present, subscribe now. This journey has only just begun. Before Athens, before Rome, before the word history even existed, there was Mesopotamia. Over 5,000 years ago, between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, what we now call Iraq, humans stopped wandering. In this sun-cracked land, scorched by wind and time, we planted, we built, and most importantly, we remember. It was the Sumerians of Mesopotamia who invented writing, not for poetry, but for taxes and laws. They carved the world's first legal codes into stone. They designed administrative systems. And they watched the stars, etching celestial charts onto clay tablets like To the west, along the Nile, another titan stirred, ancient Egypt. Under god-kings known as pharaohs, they raised pyramids so massive the modern world still stares in disbelief. The land stretching from Mesopotamia to Egypt would come to be known as the Fertile Crescent. But for those who truly understand, it is the womb of civilization. Everything we call modern cities, governments, religion, science was born. And yet we know so little. They had no machines, yet moved stones the size of freight trains. They read the stars not for beauty but for prophecy. They lived as if they were listening to something greater, something we. So ask yourself, were they truly primitive? Or did they tap into a wisdom that we, the modern world, have lost? What do you think? Were they simple, or were they far ahead of their time? It wasn't just fire and the sword. It was the mind that forged the first empires of mankind. After Sumer faded, Mesopotamia did not fall silent. Instead, it became a battleground and a stage for the rise of giants. Akkad, the first empire in recorded history, united city-states through raw force, but sustained its power through the art of governance. Then came Babylon, leaving behind the Code of Hammurabi, one of the earliest legal systems to publicly codify justice and deterrence. Assyria, the deathless warrior of the East, ruled with brutality. And yet they built the Library of Nineveh, preserving thousands of clay. From the Iranian plateau, a new power emerged, the Achaemenid Persian Empire led by Cyrus the Great. He conquered lands from Turkey to India, not through destruction, but through tolerance, diplomacy, and sophisticated administration, laying the foundation for one of the world's first multicultural And then history shook. In 334 BCE, a young king named Alexander of Macedonia crossed the Aegean Sea, armed with steel and a dream shaped by myth. Within a single decade, the mighty Persian Empire crumbled, and the Middle East entered the Hellenistic Age, an era where knowledge, language, and culture were rewired by Western ideas. But ask yourself this, was this truly enlightenment, or was it the erasure of souls who once ruled this? There are moments in history that are not written in blood or stone, but in faith. When the Roman sun began to rise over the east, it brought more than legions. It brought a new order, a redefinition of power, law, and belief. By the 1st century BCE, the Roman Empire had taken Egypt, the Levant, and Anatolia. Now it became the fragile border between rising faiths. In Judea, a new movement stirred. The name Jesus became a sacred flame that burned its way through the heart of Rome. Christianity spread not by sword but by hope. Then the unimaginable happened. Rome became the Empire of the Cross. Constantinople was founded, a world reborn in the light of the crucifix. But where there is light, darkness always follows. Byzantium and Sassanid Persia fell into endless war, trading millions of lives for fragments of land. They fought to claim faiths, only to be swept away by a new faith rising from the desert. From the silent desert came a voice that would shake the world. In the 7th century, from the barren sands of the Arabian Peninsula, a place few would have expected, a voice echoed from the city of Mecca. It wasn't the command of an emperor. It wasn't the roar of a general. It was the calling of a merchant, Mohammed, who claimed to receive revelation from the one. His message was not merely religion. It was a revolution, a radical call for morality, justice, and unity in a fractured world. And when Muhammad passed, his successors, the caliphs, did not forge their empire through brute force alone. They built it upon an unshakable belief that all men stood equal before one creator. Within a single century, Islamic forces had swept from Spain to the frontiers of India. A new vision of civilization took form, one carried not only by the sword, but by books, scholarship, and the radiant. Under the Abbasid dynasty, the city of Baghdad became more than a capital. It became the intellectual heart of the world. At the legendary House of Wisdom, Muslim scholars translated, preserved, and expanded upon the knowledge of the Greeks, the Persians, and the Indians. Here, mathematics was renamed algebra. Medicine became a science of precision. Astronomy became a language. This was not just the golden age of Islam. It was one of the most brilliant peaks of human civilization. Backhand index pointing down. Do you think this story has been hidden between the lines? When men claim heaven to conquer the earth, history stops being memory and becomes a curse. In the 11th century, warriors from Europe bearing the symbol of the cross sailed across the sea and stormed the Middle East in the name of the Crusades. They did not bring peace. They brought fire, steel, and prayers sharpened into blades, all to faith became justification for slaughter. Belief was forged into the deadliest weapon the world had ever seen. Then came the 13th century, and with it, a new fury not born of cathedrals but from the howling steppes of the east. In 1258, the Mongol horde crushed Baghdad, set fire to the House of Wisdom, and ended the Abbasid Caliphate in a storm of blood and flame. The Middle East shattered into chaos, its lands broken, scorched, and silenced. But even in the heart of that ruin, in the wild, forgotten plains of Anatolia, a banner was rising quietly in the wind. A new empire was awakening, and the world was about to. From the ashes of Byzantium, a new symbol arose, and it bore not the cross but the crescent. Around the year 1300, a minor tribal chief named Osman raised his banner amid the fractured lands of Anatolia. In 1453, they shattered Constantinople, ending more than 1,000 years of Byzantine legacy. The city was reborn as Istanbul, the new heart of Sunni Islam. Under Suleiman the Magnificent, not just a military juggernaut but a civilization that understood tolerance. From Persia, the Safavid Empire rose, rooted in Shia Islam. And so began one of the deepest religious fractures in human history, a division not carved in stone but in blood. From the ashes of Byzantium, a new symbol arose, and it bore not the cross but the crescent. Around the year 1300, a minor tribal chief named Osman raised his banner amid the fractured lands of Anatolia. Soon, his warriors would form the Ottoman Empire, a force destined to redraw the map of the known world. In 1453, they shattered Constantinople, ending more than 1,000 years of Byzantine legacy. The city was reborn as Istanbul, the new heart of Sunni Islam. Under Suleiman the Magnificent, the empire stretched from Eastern Europe to the Middle East, reaching deep into North Africa. Not just a military juggernaut, but a civilization that understood tolerance. The millet system allowed Christian, Jewish, and other minority communities to self-govern, a rare harmony beneath the framework of Islamic rule. But the moon always faces its shadow. From Persia, the Safavid Empire rose, rooted in Shia Islam. And so began one of the deepest religious fractures in human history, the Sunni-Shia divide, a division not carved in stone but in blood, and that blood still seeps through the soil of the Middle East today.